Yeah, I saw your credit with Michelangelo. What, but I couldn't, like, personally. I looked it up though. What is the project you did with him?
Well, let's see here. So I've done a few things with him. I actually shot a couple music videos for him,
Oh, nice.
and I also played on. I kind of like produced and recorded, or engineered, I should say, like produced and engineered a track that was on one of his albums, one of his instrumental albums, and then I played on the track also, and then he has done a guest performance on some of like a solo album that I released like I don't know 8 or something years ago.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, he's an amazing guy and very inspirational in terms of his career, like his career path. He really kind of blazed his own trail, and he's just he's been super supportive of me over the years, and he's given me really important advice, like 2013 or something like that, 2012, 2013. Uh, I was talking to him and I was discouraged. Okay, he was like playing in clinic in LA or something, and I was talking to him, and I'd known him for like 2 or 3 years at that point. And I was like, man, I just, I've been doing this and been doing that, and nothing's really getting any traction. And it's like, I this is kind of, we can get into the weeds on this later on, but like, I think there is a point where people should give up, right? It's like if you try and you try and you try, and
Dude,
it's
I'm
the
so glad that you're saying this because this is
oh yeah,
something I try to hammer into people. Like, yes, yes.
yeah,
Elaborate on that, please.
okay. So there's a guy. I'll tell you this quick story to get a point across, right? So there's this guy that I used to know at a gym that I went to, and he was a musician, and he had his band, and guitar player, like frontman kind of thing, right? Rock, and nice guy, and decent, at what he did. Um, and every time I talk to him at the gym, he's like, "Man, I'm working on this new song. I'm working on this new album. Oh, I got a show coming up, and man, this is going to be the one, dude. I can feel it."
We
Always
all know
talking
that.
like this, and it's like that's really admirable, right? The problem was this guy was 70 years old,
Oh, wow.
and he'd been trying to do this since he was 25,
Oh, man. To,
and it's
to be
like
honest,
it's sad, it's tragic, right? It's like,
well, because no one can tell this guy that. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, at that point, forget it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe 50 years ago, you could convince him to do something else, but not
It'd be
now.
kind of
It's like,
mean at that point to say it almost.
yeah, really. And yeah, so it's like, no, I mean, if you have a goal, especially like music or something that's glamorous, right? It's like, if you've got a goal, 110%, go for it, do everything you can do to reach that goal. But you might still not be able to reach that goal. And I think at some point, you have to stop and just evaluate your life. And it's like, okay, if I spend the rest of my life working towards this and I never achieve it, am I going to regret that?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of milestones. Like, I think what you're saying makes sense because as you kind of age out of certain eras of your life, it's like there becomes more logical pivots to do with your music career. So I feel like I don't know, kind of like when I was like 18, I moved to LA, had like no money, and I was like pretty much like, yeah, I'm gonna make it some way or another, and I'm just not gonna take no for an answer. Eventually, pretty much succeeded in those goals. I felt like, and then from there it was like now you have these accolades, but then as you like keep going with that, then you kind of start getting jaded, and then you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, everyone's kind of full of shit in this business, and you do all these things, and it's like, okay, the credits are cool, but at a certain point, I feel like you meet people that all kind of have the same credits to a certain extent. It's like, oh, you worked with that guy too, blah blah blah. And then I feel like as you get into like, yeah, a little bit older, you're kind of like, okay, what's like the logical pivot I take with this now? Like whether it be YouTube or teaching clinics or kind of in that producing in that realm more than like I'm just going to go be a rock star. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah, I do agree with it. And like, I'll finish the Michael Badio story,
Yeah,
and then
sorry. Yeah.
I'll go on from there. No, it's just, but I was at this point, because I was thinking about all the stuff that we're talking about, like, how long am I going to try to do this? And anyway, this was like, I want to say 2013. And I was talking to Michael Badio about this. And he was telling me, he's like, man, I've known a lot of people over the years that have been musicians, either they didn't make it or they did make it, and he says, I'm watching what you're doing. And he says, I think you're almost there. He says, I think you're really close. Don't stop right now. He said, like, give it a couple more years. And I think you're really close. I think you're closer than you realize. He said that to me. And so I was like, well, Michael Badio is telling me this, like I'm gonna listen to this advice, right?
Yeah.
And so I did that. And that was 2013. I was playing in a band, Hellion, at the time. There was some really promising stuff that was coming up. And 2014 was a pretty cool year. I did some, touring with the band and played on a cruise and this kind of stuff, right? And then there were some things 2015 that just really didn't pan out, like shows and things that kind of got canceled and stuff like that. And it was in 2015 that I started thinking like, okay, well, maybe there's something I haven't quite tried, like an opportunity I kind of dismissed or something. And that was when I started taking YouTube more seriously.
Okay.
And so it basically, he said a couple years. It didn't take a couple years. It took more like 4 years. But after about 4 years, it was obvious that I was making progress. And it was obvious that I'm like, okay, it's the right decision to keep going in this. Okay.
Yeah.
But it was because he gave me that advice that I kind of felt the confidence to like keep going and keep pushing. And honestly, if he'd given me the other advice, if he'd said, you know what, dude, I don't think it's going to happen for you. If he'd said that, I would have been like, yeah, I kind of think you're right. So
Yeah, you
I
take this
probably stopped right then. Yeah. But, to tie this in with the other stuff we're talking about, it's like, yeah, there are so many people that want that rock star dream, or they want to be the front man in the band and this kind of stuff. And musicians have a tendency to have a really crystal clear vision of how they want themselves to be successful, like how they want other people to see them as an artist.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm going to wear these clothes and I'm going to look like this. I'm going to play this music and I'm going to do this kind of tour. And it's very like clearly defined because they've been dreaming about it for so long. Okay. But it's like, if you just could tweak just a few of those things, it's like, okay, well, what if you're not the front man? What if you're not even really like playing an instrument? But what if you're like a recording engineer or a mastering engineer? But what if you're the best mastering engineer in the world and you've got the mansion and the limousine and all this stuff, more money than you know what to do with, but you're a mastering engineer? I think most people would be like, that still sounds pretty good, right? They would still go for that. So
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's actually super useful to be willing to give up on like the exact thing that you thought you wanted and just pivot, like you said, pivot to something similar or different. And then, it's like, I think what people want in life is not always what will really make them happy. I guess that's the thing to say.
No, I think that's very relatable. Because I feel like it kind of goes in stages, and it's like the people that really, make it like and I feel like everyone's definition is different. But to me, my definition is like, am I waking up every day and just doing this for a living? If that's what I'm doing, that's enough for me. I can pay all my bills, live in a nice place, blah blah blah. I feel like a lot of people get like kind of stubborn in the people, I guess, well, because obviously it's pretty delusional like I'll give you an example. Like it's kind of funny how the tables have turned. So I'm like gonna be 26 actually at the end of this week. So I kind of like, so I lived in LA and then I lived in Nashville and toured a lot out there. And I feel like it, in a way, seasoned me before like coming kind of into a more humble setting of just like moving back to where I'm from and just teaching, doing the YouTube thing, engineering. And like, I actually feel a lot more happier with my life now than I did when I was on the road living out of hotels and all that crap.
Mm-hmm.
But I think kind of what you're saying resonates because I was recently talking to this guy in Nashville, and he's from Chicago originally, and I guess he just moved there. He's the same age as me, and he calls me on the phone, and we're kind of exchanging ideas, basically just about music cities, and he's like, "Man, I'm just going to be super candid with you. I want to be a rock star." And I was kind of on the phone thinking, like, man, you're just kind of a little too old for that, I think. You know, it's like, and it's kind of weird how the perspectives flip because it's like, yeah, I think if you do get past the age of 25 and you haven't made like major steps in that direction, at least like doesn't mean you've succeeded fully, maybe, but like you've definitely made some huge steps towards that goal. By the time you're 25, I feel like it is safe to say like you should probably consider something else in this field or with your life in general. Would you agree with that?
Kind of. I agree with I agree with the concept, but I think it's worse than what you're saying. Like it's
Hey.
like it's the idea of being a rock star. Just forget it. Like I don't care if you're
Yeah,
16.
yeah,
You know, like
totally.
it's just not a. It's like, do you want to be an elevator operator? You know, or like a steam locomotive conductor or something. It's like it's just it's a career that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
So
I think that's pretty fair.
yeah, it's like, oh, if you're not a rock star by 25, do something else. That's true. But if you're, but you could say that at any age. Like the number, I think, is kind of meaningless because it's like,
Okay.
yeah. So you can, and if you put a different title in there, not rock star, then I think the age is less important. Like, well, I want to, like what you're saying, like I want to wake up and I want to be a musician, and that's what I do, and I make a comfortable living from that. Well, you can do that without being a rock star,
Totally.
right? So yeah, so it's like that's what I do, right? Like I'm Guitar Max, I play guitar on the internet for a living. Like that's what I do. And uh and it's great, honestly. So it's um and other people can do what I've done. There's nothing super like magical about it. So
Yeah, I think
um
that's, you just hit it on the head. Like taking the magic out of the statement is, I think, what's
oh yeah.
needed, for a lot of, because I think it just, well, it's kind of interesting. I've noticed with a lot of my students that are younger too, like Metallica made such a huge comeback in the last 5 years because
Mm,
of that TV show,
sure.
Stranger Things, and
Yeah, yeah.
and all of a sudden, like everyone, that's the vision again. It's like I'm gonna be Kirk
Yeah.
Cameron or James Hetfield, and it's like, look, you're gonna be lucky if you get a hired gun position for 150
Yeah.
bucks a night with like Darius.
Dude. Dude, man, it's like I don't want this to be all doom and gloom, that we're talking about here, but like that's the thing, man. So there's another YouTuber that lives here in LA that I'm good friends with, and he's a guy that plays live more often. And
I know who you're
and
talking
he
about.
what's that?
I won't say his name, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. So and he releases original music and stuff, and like he was recently telling me how he was putting a band together, because sometimes he just performs solo, but he's like he wants to have like a full band and everything, and so he's like connecting with other musicians and hired gun people, like you're saying, right? And what's a good way to describe this? It's like he can hire any hired gun that he wants to. They would all love to work with him. And the reason for that is, number one, for what he does, he's pretty well known. And number two is he can pay them way more than they would make on a regular tour.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
the thing you're saying, like $150, that's not a joke, right? Like that's a real number that like,
Oh no, I literally was at lunch with my
yeah,
buddy in Nashville off
yeah,
tour, and we were comparing numbers. I was playing in a cover band that was
right,
touring, and I kind of hated it. And then he was playing literally in a band opening for Darius Rucker every night, like 3,000
right.
seaters. I was like, "How much you making?" "Oh, dude, I'm making 150 a night." I'm like, "How about you?" And I'm like, "Oh, dude, I'm making like double what you're making, and I'm in a cover band."
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and so, with all this stuff about, oh, nobody buys music anymore, it's all streaming, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you can still go out and tour, you can still go out and, you can get a job as a touring musician, and you don't make very much money. And it's like, it doesn't matter the size of the artist, like for somebody, okay, the whole, to tie this all together, like the YouTube guy I'm talking about, he makes his money on YouTube. So he goes and performs, and he doesn't care if he makes money or loses money on the performance. And so because of that, he can pay his band like whatever they want, right? Because it's like
Your sleep.
every show can be, in the red, every show can lose money and it doesn't matter to him, right? So anyway, so yeah, I know it's amazing, but like, but so he can, instead of paying 150 or 250 bucks, he can pay people $1,000 a night, right?
Damn.
And that's like, I mean, it's like that's what I'm saying. Like any hired gun musician, that he wants, he can hire, right? And it's yeah, so it's like,
Wow.
I don't know. I guess do YouTube. That's that's the bottom
I was gonna
line.
say that's like the highest tier I've ever heard for pay.
Yeah,
Any
yeah,
live
because people think like, oh, like Rihanna or some, they think of some big, I don't know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, name your big touring artist, right? And they think, oh, well,
500
the band must be just raking in the money. It's like, no, man, they're not. And when they're not on tour, with a few exceptions, I should say, when they're not on tour, they're not getting paid. Now there are some bands, some artists that put people on retainers, and where they're,
Yeah, so
even when they're sitting at home not on tour, they still get paid. I know a drummer that's like that, but he's
they'll take other
very
gigs.
fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, I know like
Yeah.
Bon Jovi does that. He's got people on
Right.
salary and stuff like that. But yeah, those are
Right.
so hard to come by. And then when you
Yeah.
really think about it, it's like, I don't know if that's worth it. I guess it depends on the kind of person you are. Like I
Right.
think Bon Jovi's guitar player makes like 100K or 200K a year, some number like that. While I'm sure
Yeah.
Bon Jovi himself is making a few mil off a tour.
Yeah.
And
Hopefully.
yeah, and I don't know. Maybe that's worth it to rake in 100K and just be on the road all the time. I feel like for myself, I wouldn't find that to be worth it. But
Yeah,
that's just
it depends on the person, right? It's like, if you have that burning desire to be on a stage and in front of the crowd and all that stuff, and that is more important than the other things you have to sacrifice in order to do that. For some people, that's the right decision, but it's not the only, it's not the only way to be a successful musician, for sure.